As we can see here, Aaron has stated that he plans on discussing pausing the rewards for the Illuvium Arena when the new update comes at the end of March. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about this, if you do or don't want the rewards to be paused, but we're going to go over all of the changes coming to the arena, maybe if it's worth your time practicing this new meta so you can get good in time for the rewards to start back up again, and any other details you might have missed. And then on top of that, I'm going to talk about some new strategies I think will form with the updates to the game. We basically know what the updated game is going to look like now, bar some key changes to the different effects that Augments will have in the future. So let's jump on the next bit here. He's also saying that there will be no balance changes to the current Illuvium Arena game as they're trying to implement and overhaul the game with this new update. Now, I think this is very fair. Basically, the game's going to come out. They don't need to waste time updating the current one, even though they kind of broke the meta before going through this. So it's a shame that Revenant and Dust is going to destroy the meta right now, and I cannot fix that for you. But we have this new updated game to look forward to, and I guess we've just got to wait a little bit longer. It should be coming before the end of March. In my personal opinion, week 1 of April, but hopefully it's very, very soon. The next thing we've got here is pretty much what Aaron is describing as the new game mode. So basically, firstly, augments are getting taken out of the team builder. They are no longer an NFT that you build, and instead they are simply part of the game. Similar to legendary augments, except you'll get a random set of 3 to choose between and have to pick one. Your opponent will get a different set of 3 augments. Now, I know a lot of people have their concerns that this could be broken in terms of balancing. He says that the augments are more going to be able to help you adapt to the situation in front of you rather than giving you overpowered abilities. For example, if there was one augment that gave you 100 extra attack damage, and if you get that, it's just going to be really lucky and you're going to do really well in that match. I think it's going to be more like if you're a fighter, you get extra attack speed, or you do more damage to bulwarks or something like that. Something that's a little bit more adaptive and a whole lot more restricted. But until we see the augments, we will not know for sure. He also says that this is how augments get into your hand now. That is the only way. The big advantage to this is it's going to make the game so much more casual friendly. For better or for worse, it's going to be more casual friendly, which means more players, which means that the game, I don't know, it's just good. More players is typically good. It's very few cases where it's bad. It's good that people will be able to jump in and enjoy the game. The community will grow. The community will get stronger, which will strengthen the entire ecosystem. And we can always get more game modes added in. Even if this is the game mode we have right now, we could get more less casual game modes added in the future quite easily. So you don't need to worry about that side of things. He also says team builder is faster since you don't have to worry about this. And the games are more dynamic since you can't just pick the perfect augments. There are also many more of them and they are simpler. Simpler is good. I think that's fine. I mean, the less reading, the better in these sorts of games, in my opinion. Hyper also has some changes to make it more impactful, where you get both a ramp up and a boost when you get 100%. Now, Hyper is one of the most underutilized mechanics in Illuvium. Now, it's great. If you can use a Piper and your opponent can't, and you're both at the top elo using perfect decks, then you are going to win. However, the area of effect is way too large. I hope they reduced it, but it takes too long for Hyper to kick off. In this case, you're actually going to gain Hyper for as long as you've got it. So say the Hyper buff is, it's like 50% attack speed for fighters. Say a fighter is at 10% of its Hyper bar, it's going to get 5% attack speed. 50% of its Hyper bar, 25% attack speed, which is a really big buff. And a lot of the time, your Illuvials will get halfway up the Hyper meter before a few things die and things shuffle and the Hyper stops. So I think this is a really good change to Illuvium. It's something that it desperately needed, but I would still like to see Hyper be as impactful as possible because it's one of the best ways to force people to build a balanced team and play what's in front of them as well. If your opponent's got like a really tunneled in team, it's like full ram fire, you should need like 3 Earth Illuvials in your team to literally beat it. And now you both have to play what's in front of you really carefully, and I think that would be really cool, but it might be too complicated as well. So there's that. The next thing is dominant synergies are more predictable and have simplified it so that the later stages in the line always have the same as the stage 1. They found through testing that almost nobody was picking the worst version, and there weren't many times when they were both very reliable. I mean, this is fine. So this does drop complexity in favor of making easier for people to start. It might be cool to actually just allow you the choice on the fly. For example, you have your phosphorus and you upgrade it from stage 2 to stage 3. I'll explain that in a minute. And then you pick nature or earth. You just pick it at that point in the game, but that might be a little bit too much power. So the next thing we've got here is this. Each augment is useful. So it's more about being able to adapt better than your opponent. One of the things that needs improvement in the current game is how similar most matches are. It's stale, to say the least. There's some ways to help it out, like giving rerolls, but we haven't implemented that just because we want to see how it is raw before working on any possible quality of life. So they're going to do a really rudimentary version of this, okay? It's going to have problems. It's going to have possible improvements, but they want to just get it out as quickly as possible, let the community give feedback, and then decide on which changes they do and don't need. I think that is a perfectly fine approach. The only problem is the community might not understand that messaging and get angry. I don't know. I hope not, but we'll see. In any case, they have a few people on the team that are very high skill level players, and they even find this much better because learning to adapt is a skill, and it's harder to adapt if you just tunnel into one comp. We don't want that. We want varied matches. I like the idea of like a lot of the alluvials right now, except for like Ramfire and maybe Gyro, they rely quite heavily on augments. Even Scoriox, it has no augments that make it usable. You know, it used to have augments it did with the pure damage and all the rest of it, but now they're just so nerfed that you can't use it without them. So I like the idea of having these things in your team and needing to choose which ones to play based on the augments you get to make sure that you play out the match right, which would be super, super cool. Okay, the next one we've got here. Okay. The 3 augments that get randomly given to you on an augment phase are separate to the legendary augment phase. Now you're going to have 2 lots of augment phases. I'm going to assume 4 of these phases in total, 2 legendary and 2 normal. And legendary are powerful and they do not have a mastery cost, which is really, really cool. That's going to make them not only more impactful, but it's going to balance them in a little bit of a different way where you want to pick whatever's the most powerful rather than whatever's the most powerful at a cheap cost or whatever it might be. So the balancing is going to be really tricky, but if they can balance it really well, I think it is going to do it's going to be really, really cool. I know they talked about it in the past. I don't think they're going to do this. That legendary augment you can have on top of the other augments. And so an alluvial could have 3 augments. I think they should do that and make legendary augments really like a really big variable in the game, which could make it more interesting, but that's just me. Okay, next up, we've got the final change is about the flow of the game. This one's really important. You cannot just plonk down a stage 3, which makes your team carousel much cleaner and flow more nicely. You also have to start small and build out from there. Building up a team is something people tend to really like, and ours isn't quite as buildy as other games. I think that's fair enough. I think it makes a little bit of sense. Even in things like Hearthstone, you can only play 1 mana cards on turn 1 and 2 mana cards on turn 2. I don't know if that's buildy, but at the same time, it limits the amount of progression each turn and means that you need to strategize your entire team around that sort of progression. And it's not TFT or Underlords, but it does increase the feeling of building towards something fun and powerful. I like that. So it sounds like the game is also going to slow down quite a bit. I don't know how I necessarily feel about that. I like the fast pace of the Illuvium Arena, but I think it has to slow down to become a better game. And so that's definitely the case. So just to recap, rewards are going to be paused for 2 weeks when the new beta comes out. Right now, you can still earn rewards. That's fine. There will be no more augments in the team builder, and there will be additional augment phases where you are given 3 augments at a time. Legendary augments will have their own phase like before, but now they are free. And we've also heard TSG talk about having 5 augments to choose from. No, I have no idea if they're going to change the bidding for legendary augments. I can assume that they might update it, but maybe not. The next thing is you cannot play a stage 3 alluvial before a stage 1. Even right now, a lot of people are playing Ramfire Ramfire on turn 2. Now they're going to have to play Ramfy and Ramfight, and maybe they can't even play them on the same turn. They have to go turn by turn. And so you really need to limit your progression that way and play the board in front of you. Just play the best team you can at any time while considering what you're working towards. Lastly, hyper ramps up over time, meaning that the more hyper you're gaining, then the better your alluvial is going to be, which is going to make it a lot more impactful for big hyper matchups, which I'm excited for because that will help limit the amount of use of things like Ramfire. You can't just chuck it down because then they're going to know where to put all of their Earth Grokkos and their Earth Dokers to grant hyper and just destroy that thing. And so you can't place your big value pieces in that way, and you need to be a lot more careful about playing what's in front of you. I personally really like these arena changes. I don't know how they're going to play out. I think it's going to be positive, but not perfect. Either way, we're moving towards something that's going to be quite amazing.